And I'm Jeff Goldblatt. In 1993, Congress implemented the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, the law that bans gay troops from serving openly in the military.
Now an Illinois congressman wants that law repealed. He is Democrat Mike Quigley, and he joins us this morning to explain why. Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So what's wrong with Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
You know, when I visited our troops in Iraq last year, I didn't see black or white troops. I didn't see men or women. I didn't see Democrats, Republicans. I saw young men and women who were willing to fight for our country. And to me, it's morally repugnant that we have a policy like this for people who are willing to risk all they have to defend this country.
The Obama administration has said it supports a repeal, but then again, it seems to have kind of kicked the can and saying we want to study, and that study's not going to be back until about December.
Right. Mr. Gates suggested that we put it off for another while. This policy has been in place since 1993, and what has it done but make us less safe? We have discharged over 13,000 troops, including 800 mission-critical troops and almost 70 linguists who can interpret Arabic language and tell us what our enemy are trying to do to us.
So I was going to say, what do you want to see happen here? What would you like to see done?
Harry Truman's grandson wrote a letter to the president this week, and he talked about what his grandfather did right after World War II, which was to desegregate our troops. And he said to the president it wasn't the right time then either, right? And that he took a lot of heat from the military and the public. But as Dr. King said, it's always the right time to do the right thing.
But how do you do the right thing? How do you fast track it, especially with the White House not really seeming to come behind you and wanting to fast track it at this point?
And that doesn't make any sense. With all due respect, during the first Gulf War, there was no ban, right? Because I guess the need was so great. And 27 other countries have militaries where people can serve in openly gay fashion. The vast majority of the troops have already been polled and have said they have no problems with gays in the military.
But what piece of legislation would you attach this to, or would it be a standalone?
Look, it could be a standalone, but, you know, we just passed an anti-hate crimes bill that was attached to military appropriations. For me, it doesn't matter. We ought to have a majority of people in Congress willing to defend our troops.
Are you disappointed with President Obama's leadership on this issue?
No, he came out fairly strongly at the State of the Union saying that we need to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Just because Secretary Gates said we should put it off a while doesn't make me disappointed in the president.
He is the president, though. If he wanted it to happen, it would happen.
Oh, I think it's going to happen very soon, and we'll do our best to encourage him.
And polls show you have resounding support for repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but there are still members who have seniority in the Democrats who don't want to see this happen. So how do you get around them to move this legislation forward?
You know, it doesn't matter to me if the bill passes by 1 or 2 votes. In the end, it's doing the right thing. We have to remember we have troops on their 3rd and 4th deployment. The very idea of kicking people out of the military when you're in such need of able-bodied people who are so patriotic they're willing to go out there and risk their lives, it makes absolutely no sense to kick them out.
Speaking of President Obama, he said on Friday that this country needs to end the cozy oversight of the oil industry, the interconnectedness between the people who regulate the oil business and the people who work in the oil business. What do you think could be done legislatively to attack that issue? Should anything be done legislatively?
Look, I think we have to look at the bigger issue here, which is energy consumption as a whole. We're only going to produce about the 3% of the world's oil. So we're never going to drill our way out of this problem. In the end, we're going to have to do what China is doing right now, which is extraordinary amounts of investments into energy conservation, into renewable energy sources, because that takes away our dependence on foreign oil, reduces pollution, reduces the threats of the things that we are seeing in the Gulf of Mexico right now. It saves our environment and helps our economy.
But offshore drilling, what the White House did in going ahead and suspending the move to explore those sites out there, was that the right thing to do, or is that just kind of a knee-jerk reaction because of the spill?
Look, I think drilling off our coast was a mistake in the first place. There's too much at risk. People say, well, there's jobs involved with oil creation. You know, how many thousands of jobs are we going to lose in the Gulf Coast? From the fishing industry to the hospitality industry and all those hotels because of this spill. This could last for a decade. We have no idea. We haven't even stopped the flow of oil. And remember, it wasn't too long ago, folks were asking us to drill in the Great Lakes, including Lake Michigan.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, though. We still have a need in this country for crude. We haven't been able to find the resources for renewable energy to make our cars go, across the board and homes give them electricity. We're not there yet.
We haven't even tried. I mean, as I said, China is dwarfing our investment package on these policies, on what to do to derive alternative energy sources, because they recognize this not as a bad thing. They just see this as a challenge that they'll have to face if they want to be the #1 world economy. We have to do the same thing. Our fuel economy in our cars isn't nearly what other countries is. We can do some simple things. We have to recognize that there is a cost to carbon, and it affects all of us.
You're a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat with an independent streak. You've gotten the support of labor unions in the past, yet you are starting to take up the mantle of pension reform as it pertains to public employee unions, right?
Yes.
What are your concerns there?
Well, I think Illinois and California are racing off the cliff to compete with who's running their pension programs in the worst possible way. What I would tell the unions out there and those concerned about their pension is think of me as the canary in the coal mine. We are dramatically underfunding our pensions. We have to address our funding issues and also reform those programs so that there'll be something for them when they retire.
Certainly here in the state of Illinois, that's true.
Absolutely.
Congressman Quigley, we thank you very much for being with us this
Thanks.
morning. Nice to see you.
You too.
Well, still ahead this morning on Fox Chicago Sunday, state law